We're going to talk about a story that didn't start with some huge explosion, but with a really quiet decision made behind closed doors. We're diving into California's fuel system and a reckoning that, believe me, was years in the making.
Seriously, just think about that for a second. What happens when the very companies that fuel your entire life, your state, your economy, just decide to pack up and leave? This isn't some far-off what-if scenario. It's the question at the absolute heart of this whole situation.
So, our story kicks off with one of the biggest names in energy making this massive but somehow super quiet decision to just walk away from the place it called home for over 100 years. Look, for 140 years, Chevron was as Californian as, I don't know, Hollywood or the Golden Gate Bridge. It literally powered the state's growth. But then, in August 2024, that incredible history just ended. They quietly announced the headquarters was moving. And let's be clear, this wasn't just a move. It was the first step in a complete and total exit. You know, what's really striking here is the urgency. This wasn't some 5 or 10-year plan. Internal assessments at Chevron came to a brutal conclusion. The state was no longer a workable place for their business. And not soon, but right now. It got to the point where no amount of money could convince them to stay. So you have to ask, why the big move? Well, it really just boiled down to a simple comparison. In California, the company felt like it was constantly fighting an uphill battle, crushing costs, impossible regulations, basically being treated like the enemy. But in Texas, they found this whole welcoming ecosystem where things just got done. For them, the choice became a no-brainer. And this wasn't just about changing the address on the corporate letterhead. The people, the talent, the very core of the company had already voted with their feet. I mean, look at this. 7,000 employees in Houston compared to just 2,000 left behind in California. The headquarters move was really just making it official. And this is the point that really matters. Chevron leaving wasn't just another corporate headline. It was a signal. A massive warning flare shot up into the sky, telling everyone that the very foundation of California's energy system was starting to crack. And you better believe other companies saw it. So that warning flare, it set off a chain reaction. As soon as the biggest player in California's fuel game decided to cash out, the other dominoes started to fall. And boy, did they fall fast. First up, just 4 months after Chevron's big announcement, Phillips 66 says it's shutting down its Wilmington refinery. And just like that, 139,000 barrels of fuel production capacity per day, poof, gone. And then, right after that, Valero gets in line. Another 145,000 barrels per day of refining capacity, all slated to just vanish when its Benicio refinery closes up shop. The losses were piling up at a frankly terrifying speed.
So let's look at the grand total here. In less than a year, these decisions completely and permanently wiped out 17% of the state's entire ability to make its own fuel. And I have to stress, this isn't a temporary thing for maintenance. This capacity is gone. Forever.
Okay, this is where the story gets so uniquely Californian. See, the state isn't just losing its fuel production. It's losing it inside a system that makes getting replacements incredibly, incredibly difficult. It's becoming what people in the know call an energy island. To get why, you have to understand this one weird acronym, CARBOB. It's a special, cleaner kind of gasoline that California law requires. But here's the kicker. Over 90% of it is made right there, in California's own refineries. Almost nobody else in the entire world makes this specific blend. So you're thinking, okay, if you can't make it, just ship it in from other states, right? Wrong, you can't. There are literally no pipelines over the Rocky Mountains to bring in fuel from places like Texas. On top of that, weird old laws like the Jones Act make it almost impossible to ship it from other U.S. ports. California is physically and legally cut off. The only option left is this long, dangerous trip across the Pacific Ocean. The special fuel has to be made in one of the handful of refineries in, say, South Korea or India that can even produce it. Then it's put on a tanker for a 4-week voyage, and it sails to California, that is, if absolutely nothing goes wrong. That's not a supply chain, my friends. That's a high-stakes gamble. And it's a gamble where the stakes are unbelievably high. California's own data shows the entire system is balanced on a razor's edge. As long as there's more than a 15-day supply of fuel on hand, prices are pretty stable. But the second it dips below 13.5 days, prices can explode by over $1 a gallon almost overnight. There is zero margin for error.
But look, this crisis isn't just about what you're paying to fill up your car. Not even close. The shock waves from this energy island ripple out and they touch every single part of the economy.
Just think about the chain reaction. Farming runs on diesel. When diesel prices go through the roof, so does the price of your food. Trucking gets super expensive and unreliable, which means empty shelves at the store. The aviation industry could start rationing jet fuel, forcing flights to get rerouted. And for just normal people, a $160 tank of gas, well, that just makes getting to work impossible.
And this whole mess doesn't just stop at the state line. See, neighboring states like Arizona and Nevada depend heavily on California's refineries. So when California's supply gets tight, they are the very first to get cut off, which basically exports the crisis across the entire Southwest.
You know, the most important thing to understand here is that none of this was an accident. This didn't just happen out of the blue. It was the totally predictable result of a series of calculated decisions that have now pushed the system right past the point of no return.
The countdown is on. The system is already incredibly fragile. Then, in December 2025, the Phillips 66 refinery goes dark for good. In April 2026, Valero follows suit. And after that, the fifth largest economy on planet Earth will be running on not much more than hope, luck, and a fleet of tankers just hoping to get across the ocean in time.
California's own Energy Commission has pretty much admitted they miscalculated the impact of their own policies. But here's the cold, hard truth. You can't put this genie back in the bottle. Once you dismantle a multi-billion-dollar refinery, it is not coming back. The physical damage to the infrastructure is already done.
There's a quote from the source material that just says it all. Chevron saw what was coming. They saw the deep structural weaknesses in the system, they saw the bridge shaking, and they got out before the whole thing collapsed. Now, pretty much everyone else is still standing on it.
It's one of those classic lessons, right? You never truly realize how much something matters until it's gone. But when that something is the very fuel that powers your world, it leaves you with a final, pretty chilling question. How in the world do you prepare for a crisis when you realize it's already here and the time to get ready has long since passed?